Joining us now, Fox News contributor and The Hill's Joe Concha. Joe, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you, too, for spending your Friday with us. You know, people are sick of these DAs. They're sick and tired of it. They're literally physically endangering innocent Americans. What is more of a civil rights violation than that?
I mean, you just talked about, Elizabeth, what happened with Lee Zeldin, right? This is a sitting congressman, by the way, as well. So there should be some federal statutes that start to work their way into this, because obviously New York State can't handle somebody. This could have been attempted murder. If this weapon was thrust into Zeldin's neck, he could have died. And yet the guy gets out the same day. I mean, it is unbelievable. It could change the whole tenor of this race, by the way.
That's a good point.
So that is just one example.
You know,
yeah, right? I mean...
So here's what's going on. Nancy Pelosi, she wants to convince midterm voters to focus on culture issues, but she's not talking about crime. That's a culture issue. You're going to see her march out of her own press conference. Again, she can't handle questions about this, that whether or not she gave her husband inside information in any way, shape, or form for his big buck stock trades while she's in office. She wants voters to think all of this is just a coincidence that they're worth $130 million. Joe, I'd like you to listen to Democrat Tulsi Gabbard on that. Watch.
Okay.
What we're seeing here, Jesse, is the same thing that I saw when I was in Congress, is this blatant corruption being exposed in broad daylight. The system is rigged.
You know, polls show Americans are really upset about D.C. insiderism. So that's a culture issue, right?
Absolutely. I mean, Paul Pelosi is like the real-life Gordon Gekko. I mean, this guy has an uncanny ability to pick winner after winner. Do you know he's outperforming the S&P 500 by nearly 15% over the last 2 years? And, you know, Elizabeth, stocks haven't exactly been soaring lately, yet here you had on June 17th, Paul Pelosi exercised 200 call options on NVIDIA. That's a leading semiconductor company. The stock closed at $158 that day. Guess what it closed at today? It's all the way up to nearly $174. And in March of 21, and I got to give this as an example real quick, Paul Pelosi exercised options to purchase 25,000 Microsoft shares worth $5 million, right? Less than 2 weeks later, lo and behold, the U.S. Army announces a $22 billion deal with the U.S. to buy augmented reality headsets from, ding ding, Microsoft, and shares of the company shot up after that deal was announced. So you either believe that Paul Pelosi just happened to know that that was the right time to buy all that stock from Microsoft, or maybe, just maybe, the House Speaker Nancy Pelosi may have whispered to him in his ear during pillow talk that, hey, by the way, this $22 billion deal's coming down. Either way, it's rancid.
And the other thing, too, is he's making option bets, right? Those are directional bets. You got to have a sense of where the stock could be going. And if you have a good insider sense of it, meaning information, you have a good bet in your pocket. Now, you know, this is the thing. You've talked about it, Joe. You've written about it. Americans are tired of high gas. They're tired of a 40-year high in inflation. They're tired of historic increases in violent crime over the last few years, Biden's border collapse. They're angry that Biden and his cabinet never respond. They either deny the crises exist or blame everyone else. There's more culture mayhem, Joe. We want you to listen to this new sound of Supreme Court Justice Elena Kagan. She's claiming the Supreme Court's priority should be not losing connection with public sentiment. Doesn't talk about the Constitution in terms of her job. Watch this.
If the court is, I'm not talking about any particular decision or even any particular series of decisions, but if over time the court loses all connection with the public and with public sentiment, that's a dangerous thing for a democracy. We have a court that does important things, and if that connection is lost, that's a dangerous thing for the democratic system as a whole.
What do you think, Joe?
I think that if you polled Americans and said, would you rather the federal government have a one-size-fits-all type of model when it comes to laws, or should it be decided at the state level where Americans and their votes really feel like they count because they're electing leaders on the local level and then obviously as governors and in their senators and so on. So, yeah, I would think that most Americans would say, yes, I would rather it be more about states' rights than a central government saying, all right, what we're saying here is going to be the law and that's that. So, no, I don't think there is a disconnect as far as the Supreme Court and what the American people actually want. Elena Kagan, let's face it, you know, she's 3 one of three liberal justices. There are 6 conservatives, and that's why suddenly you hear all this talk about expanding the court, which would be the stupidest thing ever, because all what would happen if Democrats were to expand the court is that when Republicans have power, they'll expand it even more, and before you know it, you have like an NFL roster of a Supreme Court. The people will just be one-upping each other, each party, and it would be weaponized and obviously watered down, and we don't want that either, do we, Ebank?
No, we don't. Joe Concha, thanks for joining us. Have a good weekend, okay?
Happy hour starts. Thank you, Elizabeth.
Good for you.